I mean, at the moment, pretty much every poll has our support continuing to climb, or at least at record levels. Just as we're recording this, we've had another poll out that had us up a point with Survation to 12. Bearing in mind at the last election, we got 8%, and that was our best ever result. So even our worst polls at the moment are indicating we're on track for a record result. Our best polls have us in second place, ahead of Reform and Labour. I think what's behind a lot of that is not just that we have this vision that we're putting forward, things like universal free bus travel, fixing childcare, but the track record. People know that if they vote Green, we actually deliver this stuff. You know, we delivered free bus travel for young folks. We scrapped peak rail fares. We scrapped school meal debt that a lot of families were struggling with, and we expanded free school meals. So it's that combination of, probably for the first time, the Greens being able to go into an election with quite a substantial track record of achievements, but also actually putting forward a vision for what we would do differently. It's quite surprising from other parties how some of them have really failed to put forward an alternative vision to what the current government are offering.
Okay, so let's talk about the Green Party, because they seem, from the outside, they almost seem like a little bit of a dark horse who could have a bit of a say in this election. So what are they talking about in the build up to this election, Chris?
Well, here's a Green manifesto, a very chunky effort. Let's demand better. That's the kind of Green message. Now, you know, the Greens, they've got new co-leaders. So that's the kind of quirk of the Green Party, is they have not one but two leaders in Scotland. They have Ross Greer, who's been an MSP for quite a while, and they've got Gillian Mackay, and they took charge of the Scottish Greens last year. So they're very much, you know, they would say that they're projecting an optimistic campaign pitched at voters who maybe have been left behind, particularly when it comes to issues like housing. I mentioned that housing is a big issue in Glasgow, but not just in Glasgow, in places like Edinburgh, places like Aberdeen, the big cities where the majority of jobs, particularly jobs for recent graduates, people that have come out of university in their 20s, they're looking to enter the marketplace, they're looking maybe to buy their first home. You know, it's been a very, very difficult decade for people like that, unless they've got parental wealth behind them. Maybe, you know, the aspiration of home ownership has been a kind of, you know, challenge to them. The Greens say, look, we recognise that. We've got some bold policies that are going to tackle this. The Greens talk about things like rent controls, which we've seen to limited effect in Scotland in recent years. One thing that the Scottish Parliament has passed is like they've given councils powers to introduce rent caps in areas that have got particular pressures. They haven't been used yet. That's an important thing, but the Greens want to use those powers. They want to push like big intervention in the housing market. They want to build more social housing. And when it comes to taxation, they are the opposite of reform. You know, I mean, the Greens obviously would say we are the opposite of reform in every case. But whereas Reform have been arguing, you know, let's give people income tax cuts, including the wealthiest, the Greens are saying no, the wealthiest should be paying more, because we need wealthy people, wealthy Scots, to pay more to improve public services and to kind of pay for the big ticket items that the Greens are talking about in this election. One of the big Green policies that they've been really pushing is that they would make bus travel, so that's basically, you know, the average service bus that you get on at the end of your street to go into town, they want to make that free. And, you know, maybe a couple of years ago, people would raise their eyebrows at that and think, how on earth could you afford to do that? The Greens argue that in Scotland, if you are 60 or over, you already get a free bus pass. If you are 22 or 21 or younger, you already get a free bus pass as well. So that's a big Scottish policy that got introduced in recent years. The Greens pushed for it, and the SNP got it through in government as young Scots. So if you are 16, 17, you're maybe left school and you're in your first job, you can take advantage of free bus travel. If you're a student, you know, going into college or university, you can take advantage of free bus travel. The Greens say we've already paid for it. You know, I think roughly, I think you're maybe looking at 40% of the population already get free bus travel. The Greens say, right, let's crack on and get everyone can get free bus travel. This is an aspiration, I think, that would take several years. You know, you couldn't just do it next week because the cost would be prohibitive. You would need to work with the private bus companies that put on existing services. But the Greens are absolutely committed to this. This isn't just a sort of thing that they are talking about and will quietly ditch. The Greens are absolutely committed to this policy. And depending on the result on Thursday, depending on whether the SNP is the largest party at Holyrood, but they're short of a majority, the SNP have relied in the past on Green votes to get through budgets, get through big policies, to survive motions of no confidence in certain ministers. Often the Greens have been quite astute at getting some of their policies, made into law. One of those was, as I mentioned, free bus travel for people under 22. I think if John Swinney was in a position, and the SNP were in a position that they needed Green votes in the future, I think Ross Greer and Gillian Mackay would be pushing very, very heavily for this bus policy. I think it's something they really believe in. And also, as I mentioned, housing, which is a big, big issue that all the parties have talked about to varying degrees. The Greens would be looking for some big, big spending commitments, I think, in social housing. And whether there's the money for that, it all comes down to money, doesn't it? I think that remains to be seen. But the Greens they've fought a very confident, upbeat campaign. The Greens have never won a constituency at Holyrood before. They've always relied on the list vote in the past, but maybe I think that could change on Thursday. They're pushing very hard in the south side of Glasgow, in the kind of constituency that was previously held by Nicola Sturgeon, and they're pushing very, very hard in central Edinburgh, which is currently held by Angus Robertson, an SNP veteran. The Greens are pouring what little money they have, because the Greens would tell you, we don't get big corporate donors, we survive off our activists. They're pushing all their resources in these places. And I think they're definitely on course, I think, to probably record their highest number of MSPs. Whether that's enough to kind of make them challenging Labour, maybe it's enough to kind of hold off the Lib Dems, remains to be seen. But I think the Greens are going into this final week of the campaign. I think they're feeling pretty good about things.